last problem. This one is a word problem. So let's just slow down. The first step whenever you're doing a word problem is to, well, you want to read through it, but you want to define your variables as soon as possible. So let's read through it together. A quilt maker plans to make 14 quilts this year from 113 yards of fabric. A small quilt requires 4 yards of fabric. A medium quilt requires 7 yards of fabric, and a large quilt requires 11 yards of fabric. She plans to make twice as many large quilts as small quilts. How many of each type of quilt should she make? All right, of course, that last sentence is the one that's going to tell us what the variables need to be. All right, it's got to be the number of each type of quilt. So here's a suggestion. Let's let S be the number of small quilts, and we'll let M be the number of medium-sized quilts, and we'll let L be the number of large quilts. All right, our first equation is going to come from this part right here. The quilt maker plans to make, she's going to make 17 quilts this year. Okay? Now look, that alone, there's going to be, did I say 17? The quilt maker plans to make 14 quilts. Okay? Now, if S is the number of small quilts, M is the number of medium quilts, and L is the number of large quilts, and guess what? All together, she's going to make 14 quilts. Then that suggests to you an equation right there. And that equation should look simple like this. S plus M plus L should equal 14, right? All right, there's 14 quilts. These are the different kinds. They should all add up to 14. Now, because we have 3 variables, we're going to need 3 equations if we're going to solve this. So somewhere in these words, we have to find 2 more equations. Okay, this was the quantity equation. Let's see what else we can find. Okay, this single number right here basically gives me another equation. 113 yards of fabric. All right, that's the total amount of fabric that she's going to use. Now, well, I guess that alone doesn't give it to me. All right, a small quilt, I guess I got to piece it together. 113 yards of fabric. So look, what I'm going to be shooting for next is I'm going to be making a fabric equation. So we had the quantity equation, total of 14, just add them up. They have to equal that number. But the next equation is going to be a fabric equation. All right, how much fabric? And so far we know the total amount of fabric is going to be 113 yards. So that's going to be over here off by itself. That's the total. Now, as I scan through here, it's going to say so much fabric per small quilt, so much for medium, and so much for large. And I'll just put those in as multipliers. Just like when we've done those problems that were like, Jana buys 2 dogs and 3 cats for $135. And we would do, 2 dogs and 3 cats, so 2 dogs, 3 cats for $135. Just like that. Except for now it's going to be fabric. So let's see. Let me go back to my highlighter. Okay, so a small quilt requires 4 yards. A medium quilt requires 7 yards. And a large quilt requires 11 yards. Okay, all of that is going to go into the green equation. So small quilt, 4 yards. So that's going to be 4 yards of fabric for every small quilt. 7 yards of fabric for every medium quilt. And 11 yards of fabric for every large quilt. Okay, so we have the quantity equation, which is nice and simple. They just add up to 14. The fabric equation, we had to do all the multipliers to get the total amount of fabric. Now, we need one more equation. And so let's see, I need another color. Alright, the last equation is going to be this random relationship that is being thrown in here. And I'm going to highlight it here in pink. It says, she plans to make twice as many large quilts as small quilts. So that is going to be the third equation. And this is just a random relationship. Okay, this is not dark enough to see. Okay, that's better. So, she plans to make twice as many large quilts as small quilts. Okay, so this is just going to be a little equation here. Now look, she's comparing large quilts and small quilts. Okay, so on the one hand we have large quilts, on the other hand we have small quilts. Now, both sides of this equation have to be equal. But is she going to make more large quilts or is she going to make more small quilts? It says she's going to make twice as many large quilts. So she's going to make more of these. So if I want this equation to balance, I'm going to have to make the small quilt side bigger to match the number of large quilts. So I'm going to have to actually put, twice as many large quilts. So to make these equal, I would have to double the number of small quilts in order to equal the number of large quilts, because that's going to be more. Okay, that one is the one that kids mess up the most, because they see the twice and the large together and they just want to put 2L, because twice as many large and then the small. Kids want to just go in order with it. But for an equation like this, you have to stop and think. Does large equal small? No. Which one is more? There's twice as many large, so this side is going to be more. And remember, like an equation is like a balance. Okay? They've got to be equal on both sides. And right now, we're saying that the number of large quilts is more. So as it is, if the number of large quilts is more, then it's like the scale is tilting this way. Alright? It's too heavy. This is too much. So to balance it out, we have to double the small side. So now it won't be more anymore. Okay, now that I've doubled this, now they're equal again. Okay, now it balances. So double the one you have less of, so it equals the one that you had more of. Okay, because the S was less. I hope you understand that. That's what kids have the most trouble with. Anyway, so these are the three equations. Once you have the equation set up, then you can go ahead and solve it using elimination or substitution. Considering I have this tiny little equation here with L already by itself, substitution is going to be the way to go. Alright, I'm going to highly recommend substitution. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so this is going to be my blue equation this time. I guess I could just use the color it is. I don't know why I'm prejudiced against it. Okay. Alright, so here we go. The quantity equation was this. S plus M plus L is equal to 14. Okay, so that's one equation. And then the fabric equation, I'm just going to recopy it. Okay, so since L is already by itself, I can take what L equals and substitute it in the other two equations. So I'm going to take this and substitute it in here for L, and I'm also going to take it and I'm going to substitute it in here. So when you do substitution, generally you're going to substitute into both of the other equations. So let's see what happens. Let's start with the quantity equation. So this is going to become S plus M, plus 2S is equal to 14. Okay, combining the like terms we have, well, I meant that to be yellow. Alright, like terms, we have the S and we have the 2S, right? Let's put those together. Alright, so that's going to make 3S plus M is equal to 14. Okay, that's as far as I can go with that equation so far. So I'm going to put a box around that for now. Now let's look at the green equation, the fabric equation. Okay, so this is going to be 4S plus 7M plus 11 times 2S is equal to 113. Okay, so this is going to become 4S plus 7M plus 22S is equal to 113. Again, we have some like terms to combine. The 4S and the 22S are like terms, they go together. So if I do that, I'm going to have 26S. Alright, plus 7M is equal to 113. So that's as far as we can go with the green fabric equation. So I'm going to put a box around that. So notice I'm down to two variables, S and M. So our next move is to put those equations together like we used to. We'll just stack them up and see what we can do. Well, you know what? Better yet, I'm doing substitution. So what I could do is keep going using these two equations but doing substitution. That's what I'm not going to stack them up. I'm sticking with substitution. And I'm especially saying that because see this M here? See how M is by itself? It would be very easy for me to get this M by itself completely. So watch this. Going back to that brown equation. So I had 3S plus M is equal to 14. I just recopied it. If I subtract 3S from both sides, that's going to give me M is equal to negative 3S plus 14. So you know how substitution works. I could take this stuff and put it in for M. Okay, so now this is going to become 26S plus 7M. Okay, now the M stuff is the, I'll just write it brown just for one more second. So that would be our negative 3S plus 14. It's this. Okay, and that's equal to 113. So gotta do the distributive property here. So I've got 26S, and that's going to be minus 21S, and that's going to be plus 98 is equal to 113. Alright, looking at the like terms that I have right here, that's going to be 5S plus 98 is equal to 113. As we subtract 98 from both sides, okay, that's going to give us 5S equals 15. So if I now divide by 5 to finish it off, of course I'm going to get s equals 3. Okay, so that is our first value. All right, we just found the number of small quilts. It's 3. So we still need to find the other two. So let's stick with these equations down here. So now that I have that s is 3, I can take that and plug it in right there. All right, so this is going to become m is equal to negative 3 times 3 plus 14. So m is equal to negative 9 plus 14, which is going to be, so m is equal to 5. So now we have two of the values, 5 medium quilts, 3 small quilts. So that just leaves the third and final number of quilts, but that will be easy enough if we go back to the beginning. We need the number of large quilts. Remember this guy? Number of large quilts is twice the number of small quilts. All right, we could use this pink equation. Okay, L equals 2s. Remember that? So if L is equal to 2s, that means it's 2 times 3. So that means we'll have 6 of those. Now we have all 3 values. All right, this time instead of recording the answer as an ordered triple, we need to record the answer using our words. Okay, and it might look something like this. She will make 3 small quilts, 5 medium quilts, and 6 large quilts. So please do not leave your answers as X's, Y's, and Z's, or even S's, M's, and L's. If it's a word problem, a real world problem, go back and write your answer in the form of a sentence. Okay, and that is it for this assignment. All right, number 9 was the last one. All right, we will work on this more tomorrow.